In 1923, the Fairey Company won an Air Ministry competition for an Army liaison, light bomber, and reconnaissance aircraft to replace the Airco DH-9. This aircraft was the Fawn, and Charles Fairey hated it. The initial specification was unambitious, and the process of designing the plane was frequently interrupted by the Air Ministry shifting its standards. In response, he designed and built the Fox, a revolutionary streamlined light bomber that instantly set a new performance benchmark. It was nearly 50 miles an hour faster than a contemporary fighter. The Air Ministry grudgingly ordered one squadron, but unfortunately for Fairey, they didn't forget being made to look foolish. When they finally issued a requirement for a high-speed light bomber in 1926, Fairey were not just uninvited, they were explicitly prohibited from receiving the documents. When they finally forced their way into the competition, they'd lost valuable design time, and ultimately they lost a tender that they'd been instrumental in triggering. Hawker's Heart went on to be regarded as a famous innovation. The Fox is forgotten. Fairey's entry into the 1926 competition was unimaginatively called the Fox 2. It too represented a significant innovation in light bomber design, and although it didn't go on to serve in the RAF, it did brief but arduous work in the Belgian Air Force's defense of their country against the Luftwaffe in May 1940. That was all to come. Having forced his way into the May 1926 competition, Charles Fairey and his team got started on their aircraft. At comparatively short notice, they developed the Fox 1M, an all-metal successor to the Fox 1. In this, Marcel Lebel and Pierre Raleigh had altered the structure, aerodynamics and overall layout very considerably in relation to the earlier Dade bomber. The construction was of steel, fabric covered with a tubular fuselage and wing spars of drawn high-tensile strip. A minor but visually prominent new feature of the Fox 1 was the horn-balanced rudder and fin design, which would become a signature of later Fairey biplanes like the Seal and the Gordon II. Armament was similar to that of the Fox 1, with a single forward-firing Vickers gun in a blast trough on the port side, and a Lewis gun on a Fairey high-speed mounting aft. Power for the prototype was provided by a 480 horsepower normally aspirated W12 Rolls-Royce Kestrel, as in the Fox 1A. Fox 2 was 29 feet long with a wingspan of 38 feet. It was therefore dimensionally very similar to the Fox 1A. It was about 10% lighter, and thus it had a top speed of 189 miles an hour versus 165 in the Fox 1A. The prototype flew for the first time about a year after the Avro Antelope and the Hawker Hart had made their initial flights. In the event, the Hart was ordered before the Fox 2 had actually flown. Among the former's favourable features was a structure which was considered to be superior in terms of rigging, maintenance and replacement. An initial production order for the Hart, to specification 9/29, was placed in June 1929. The two aircraft are, however, quite similar in performance, with the Fox being marginally faster. It makes one wonder what Fairey could have achieved given the same development time as the other runners. Since it was not required by the RAF, the Fox 2 thus became available for possible sale abroad. The Belgian government had already selected the Firefly 2 as a single-seat fighter, and was in the market for a high-performance day bomber to replace the aging Breguet 19s. The prototype Fox 2 was flown over for demonstrations. Discussions with Fairey director and foreign representative squadron leader Maurice Wright, who spoke fluent French, were successful, and the Fox 2 was adopted for the Belgian Air Force on the condition that it was to be capable of being maintained, repaired, and later assembled in Belgium. An initial contract was signed in January 1931 for 12 aircraft, powered by the supercharged Kestrel 2S engine and manufactured by Fairey. The first of these made its initial flight on the 14th of December 1931, and deliveries began in January 1932. Following the terms of the agreement, in March 1932, work started on the assembly plant near Charleroi, and the Belgian associate, Avion Fairey, was officially registered on the 12th of September. According to figures published after the war, between 1932 and 1939, the factory produced 177 Fox derivatives. These joined a dozen aircraft made in Hayes and another dozen that were made during a crash attempt at rearmament in 1938 and 39. The first 28 Belgian-built aircraft were Fox 2s. The next 66 were improved Fox 3s, which were made in 3 versions. The first 13 aircraft were powered by the Kestrel 2S, and they had 2 forward machine guns. The most common version was the 3C reconnaissance fighter, which had the 2 forward-firing machine guns and an enclosed cockpit for the pilot, which also partially protected the rear gunner. 35 aircraft were built like this. A dozen were fitted with 600 horsepower supercharged Kestrels and intended for high-altitude operations. The final aircraft was a single dual-control trainer, which joined 4 or 5 open-cockpit dual-control trainers known as Fox 3MSs. After producing 6 Fox 4 aircraft for Peru, Avion Fairey decided to develop a further improved version. This Fox 6 featured a Hispano-Suiza engine of either 650 or 830 horsepower, increasing power by as much as 80%. Together with a faired-in cockpit, faired landing gear, and a 3-bladed propeller, this allowed the Fox 6 to get up to a maximum speed of as much as 223 miles an hour. 94 aircraft were built in the years running up to 1938. Various other variants were experimented with, including the Fox 7, which had only 1 seat and an additional 4 Vickers machine guns in the upper wings. It could also optionally be armed with a 20mm Oerlikon firing through the propeller hub. Only 2 were made, but in 1939 another dozen Fox 8s were constructed, equipped with a 3-bladed metal propeller in place of the 2-bladed wooden item on the Fox 4. The last of these was delivered at the end of May. Although the 75 or so Fox 4s had great performance for a 1931 biplane, when Germany invaded in 1940, the aircraft encountered the Messerschmitt Bf-109. In the early morning of the 10th of May, the alert was sounded just before 0300 at Dienst airfield. Belgium did have some Hurricanes and Gloucester Gladiators stationed on the field alongside the 2 squadrons of Fairey Foxes. Those Foxes had been due to take part in live firing exercises at Beverloo, but given the sudden change in circumstances, at 0420 hours, 1 squadron took off to spot German troop movements east of Liège. En route, the 13 aircraft landed at field number 23 at Wissenacken at 0835. 30 minutes later, 9 of those aircraft left for a fighter sweep around Dienst. Here they were attacked by Bf-109s, and 3 Belgian aircraft were shot down. The other 6 were damaged. But Lieutenant Etienne Dufossez claimed to have shot down a Bf-109 before he was himself shot down and killed. This was probably a Bf-109E flown by Feldwebel Hopper, who died in the crash, although German records suggest that Hopper was killed over the Netherlands, so there is some doubt about the claim. Such was the intensity of those summer days in 1940 and the relatively small area of the battlefield that records are sketchy. Belgium surrendered on May the 28th, but the 100 or so sorties its brave pilots managed to undertake by that time are a suitable postscript to a forgotten but effective combat aircraft.